So if you're just joining us, we are in a conversation talking COVID with Rustons Henry of H&W Drugstore Dispensary. So this is a twofold article. We're going to talk a little bit about, a little and a lot about marijuana, but we're going to also talk COVID. And if you haven't known, Area Magazine is coming out with a new look, new feel, new, as John would say, the new look. I'm Madera Rogers-Henry, your art director and your content builder for Area Magazine, and it is just my pleasure to be here with my cousin Ruston, my husband's cousin Ruston. That's just such an honor to say that. And so what we were doing is talking about COVID. So you do have a lot of insight on COVID, and what's your message?
Right. At H&W Drugstore, we have, besides the medical marijuana dispensary, we have 3 retail establishments.
Mm-hmm.
We have vaccinated over, I would say, 2,000 people.
Okay.
With COVID being so rampant, I would suggest everybody get vaccinated. They're saying that the latest stats showing that 99% of the new cases of COVID that's hospitalized and that's dying have not been vaccinated. There was a recent article that just came out that showed the doctors, from the doctor's perspective, they interviewed these people, the new cases of COVID, and all of them have serious regrets the fact that they didn't take it seriously and that the vaccine was available and they did not participate in it. Mm-hmm. You know, everybody's out here now. They should get vaccinated. Now, how did they come up with? Some of the people say, "Well, I don't want to be sterile if I'm a childbearing woman age." The data came out that, hey,
it's not effective.
It doesn't affect your fertility at all. So if you have a kid or you think about having a kid, that shouldn't be an issue. There's as black people, we come up with the Tuskegee experiment.
And other,
and other ones they did.
Maybe.
But the thing about it, so many rich, powerful, influential people are getting this vaccine. To me, that's not an option. The majority of your healthcare workers are vaccinated. So if you had some kind of plot to eradicate a certain amount of population, there's no scenario where you're going to have to eradicate your healthcare from this. You don't want a situation where you have no doctors, no nurses, no pharmacists available and all this stuff, and you're trying to redo a civilization. So that doesn't fly. Most of your influential and middle class to upper middle class people have been vaccinated. So the people that you would normally do some subversive things to, if you're a conspiracy theorist, that population that could put something like together, they've been vaccinated. And people don't realize that, politically wise, a lot of people are not getting vaccinated because of what Donald Trump said. But they don't realize Donald Trump and his family were vaccinated.
Yeah.
But that's not publicized much at all. So you got some of these people who are staunch Trump Republicans. Trump said it's a hoax and all this stuff, but Donald Trump was vaccinated. Him and his family was vaccinated. So, and consequently, he did catch COVID before that. So I would urge anybody who's anybody, get vaccinated. It's free. It's available. We have 3 retail locations in the New Orleans metro area that you can get vaccinations on. So I would urge you to do it. I would hate you to be one of those people in hospitals struggling for your life and saying, with an easy, quick vaccine, you could not be there. You could be enjoying your life like you would normally enjoy it, but now you're on the verge of dying, or you're going to be missing weeks and weeks of your work and your life because you were too stubborn not to get the vaccination.
Okay. So that's a message.
That's the message. That's the message.
Okay. Got that, John? All right. So that's COVID. So we can use that for COVID. All right. So now we're going to go into marijuana. All right. Marijuana, contradictions. This is New Orleans, Louisiana. I was in Denver, Colorado when it was legalized in Denver. And I started seeing the stories. People lining up in the first little place. They lined up the whole block down the street to get that first ounce. The guy sold out in the first day. Here's the problem. He couldn't put the money in the bank.
Right.
Couldn't put it in the bank. That was one of his biggest problems. He sat there and he said, so now that I have it, I found out I can't put the money in the bank. So what he had to do is hire armed guards. And then before he even moved, he said, oh my God, this is a problem because I have to have armed guards all the time. So he had to change his whole model. That's Colorado.
Right.
How is that different here in New Orleans for you?
Well, whenever you start something new, you're gonna have a lot of hiccups.
Yeah.
This was a brand new industry that came up there, and there were hiccups. So now, 34 of the 50 states have some form of marijuana
Yes.
program in place, either medical or recreational. Louisiana has a medical marijuana system. So,
Can you explain the difference for people who
Okay.
don't know the difference between medical and recreation?
recreational is when anybody's over 18 can use marijuana, and it's just, think of it like alcohol. You can use it for recreation just exactly like alcohol. Hey, I want to drink, I want to smoke some marijuana. So that's recreational. Medical, years and years and years in the past, marijuana was on the U.S. formulary as a viable medication for multiple conditions. In the 70s, they stigmatized marijuana by being something bad, illicit, and all this stuff, part of the war on drugs, which affected a lot of people of color. So, fast forward, down the line, people realized that let's take a second look at marijuana, and marijuana has a lot of therapeutic applications to it. So Louisiana, so as far as the medical program, it's used like any other medication. If you have like your blood pressure medicine, antibiotics, diabetes medicine, it has therapeutic medical applications to it. So that's the medical marijuana program. It's treated just like any other medicine.
But the recreation.
Right, the recreation is, think of recreation and alcohol is synonymous. Just
Okay.
my criteria for using alcohol and using marijuana would be almost the same. Hey, look, I don't want to feel bad and all this stuff. Now, remember that marijuana has therapeutic applications. So some of the people who are using it recreational, they're using it semi-recreational but semi-therapeutic. If you say they realize the benefits of it, like I have sore joints, I'm having problems sleeping and all that, it treats those things there. You don't need a prescription for it because they realize the benefits of it. In Louisiana, we don't have that recreational component is not a viable option. It has to be recommended strictly on just like any other medicine. So it has to be prescribed by a physician, and it has to be filled at a pharmacy, just like any other medication.
Okay.
Now, for the longest, like I said, marijuana had a negative stigma on it.
Okay, that's correct.
So now physicians and the healthcare industry is looking at marijuana and say it has a huge
Profit.
therapeutic application to a lot of things.
Right.
I mean, it's great for pain, anxiety, insomnia, autism, PTSD, and many, many, many more conditions. So a lot of this with this opiate epidemic, people are looking for viable alternatives. The opiates are highly addictive. They're harmful to the liver,
Body.
and then
Yeah.
after a while, their efficacy decreases. So you need more and more, and all this, which aids to the addiction. And last but not least, people dying from it. So marijuana is a viable alternative. It's holistic, it's natural, it doesn't deteriorate your liver, and nobody dies from it. So people are looking at it as a viable alternative. So we see a lot of people are using marijuana because they didn't want some of these other medications. So that's the form that Louisiana has. You have to have it. It's another medicine that the doctor can prescribe.
So when you, coming from being a person of color, specifically a black man, and you look at the contradictions of marijuana, we know that one joint in the past could land you in jail for 35 years. 1 ounce could land you in jail for a couple of years. Now we see the flip. We see more whites owning dispensary, and we see fewer blacks owning dispensaries. Am I incorrect about my presumption?
Not just dispensaries, cultivators, growers, manufacturers, all
Okay.
aspects of marijuana. on
Why
the
is
legal
that,
side.
you think?
Money. It's money.
Because it involves more money.
Right,
now.
right. First of all, I'm glad that a lot of legislation is going away. You decriminalizing possession of small amounts of marijuana.
Right.
I am definitely in favor of that because small amounts of marijuana should not be criminalized.
I agree.
So the second thing is marijuana is big business.
Yes, it is.
And a lot of times we aren't on the forefront of new innovative business coming. So a lot of people have to have a lot of money, and unfortunately we don't have a lot of that resources to get in this industry, the resources or the know-how. But there are a significant number of people of color who are in this industry on the growing and then on the dispensary level, but it's still small.
I heard it's like about 100 collectively.
Maybe.
Before COVID,
Yeah,
I would say.
exactly.
I don't know what it's like after now.
Exactly. But in Louisiana, I'm just going to talk about Louisiana. Okay, there are 2 growers. One of which is Louisiana State University's Agriculture Department, LSU's Agriculture Department. They partner with a company called Well Canna. The second one is Southern University in Baton Rouge Agriculture Department. They partner with a company called Lyra. The chief person of Lyra is the people of color. So that out of the 2 growers, one of them is a black entity.
That's important.
The second one is there are 9 dispensaries in the state of Louisiana. Of the 9 dispensaries, and they're geographically arranged, of the 9 dispensaries, 2 of the 9 dispensaries are owned by black people. So
And you one of them.
yeah, we're one of 2 black owned. So as far as representation goes, in Louisiana medical marijuana system, we are pretty well represented. But nationwide,
No.
it's not nearly as close as that.
So when you started this, so let me ask you, with the Contradictions, when you came in this, and now that you're in it, what did you think, and what is so now? What did you see?
Well, I'm a pharmacist, and I think from a pharmacist's perspective, this medication helps a lot of people. I don't care if you're, the conversation not about if you feel good getting high and all that. It alleviates a lot of pain, a lot of the medical conditions. People who couldn't sleep, they're now sleeping. People who have PTSD, we are saving people's lives, actually. A lot of these people are deadly afraid of getting on these opiates because they see the addictive properties and the negative properties that opiates have. They chose medical marijuana as a viable alternative. And this isn't just people of color. We have a diverse client base here. So they're rediscovering the healthcare and patients. They're discovering that medical marijuana is definitely a viable option to other medications.
So in your company, what would you encourage? How would you encourage others who might be people of color to get involved in this particular field? How would you suggest going about?
That's a rough question. The first thing I would tell you to do is, if you're suffering from some of these debilitating conditions, look at medical marijuana as a viable alternative. Because there are countless number of people who won't participate in this program simply because of the negative stigma we have with marijuana. We have people that come back, 70, 80, 90-year-old people coming back to us over and over again because we're giving back their lives. They couldn't walk out the door without because they was in so much pain or had these conditions, and now they're doing things to increase their quality of life. So from a patient standpoint, if you're suffering from various conditions, we have kids who couldn't go to school because they have autism, and now they're using this medicine, and it's making their autism a lot more manageable. So it's a viable alternative as far as that goes. As far as getting into the industry, see what's available. Right now, there's only 9 dispensaries. In by law, they aren't awarding any new ones. But down the line, if recreation becomes available, there may be some chance for some new growers, some new dispensaries and all that stuff. So keep eye on that.
So when you are thinking about, so let's go back to this. One of the major things that appears is people have a misconception about marijuana smoking. It's bad, it's this, it's devilish, it's whatever our myths are. But what you're saying is that what it provides is a comfort for things of the body that ails. It's good for PTSD. It's good for any types of things. How is it with an Alzheimer's or anything? Have you had any
Well,
patients like that?
Because it's federal legal, some of the studies aren't. They can't do some of the studies in the states, but there are a lot of data that's showing it's in study. Let's just put it this way: it's in study regarding Alzheimer's. I'll see one article that says it's good, another article that says it's not conclusive enough. So it's under review right now. But just to let you know, the medication we dispense are in a variety of different forms. And people always think you come in and smoking. Mostly, Louisiana does not permit anything that's smokable or edible. So we have tinctures.
Explain that.
Okay.
What do you mean by that?
So it doesn't have a way you can smoke it first.
Okay.
Now the recent legislation that passed, they will approve smokable form that should be
So
available.
before
generally.
it was what?
Tinctures, ointments, capsules, transdermal patches, oils, creams,
Except
lotions.
smoking?
Yeah. Well, remember we're in Louisiana. We're in a very conservative state now. When it's in its inception in the legislature, it was those type of forms. They have expanded it since then.
Okay.
So they're provide vaporization now as a viable alternative. We have vapes in place that's clean, that's give you exact dosage and all this stuff. Like I say, raw flour, because the raw flour is cheaper to process and to manufacture. It drives the cost down, so that way more people who maybe not could afford the tinctures or the vapes or the gelatin based chews and like that. You know, the raw flour is a little bit more cheaper to process. So therefore, more people who said I couldn't participate in it because of the cost, it's driving the cost down. So that's going to be that was the main impetus for them adding flour to the
It's interesting. That's very interesting. I thought it would be the other way around.
Well, no, we're the conservative. They didn't.
We are in
Their
the
thinking
state.
was, we don't want this to be recreational. Recreation was smoking gummies, and chewable brownies, and all this stuff. That's recreation. They didn't want it to come and have
They
that.
didn't want that stigma.
We're still talking about something that's demonized on a federal level.
Right. What?
All right.
Good.
That now we have a lot of African Americans that are in jail for this. Now, what do we do in the process of now our state or the states are selling marijuana that these people have been incarcerated for?
I think they should be
But
let
now,
go.
Of course.
exactly.
The people who are in simple possession, I'm not saying distribution. My thing is possession-wise, they should be let go. That's simple.
So here's the thing, we have a new district attorney, right? I wonder if this is something that he's looking at in regards to things of this
I know the
nature.
current industry, the current climate is they're not prosecuting. Louisiana's, the DA from Louisiana is not, New Orleans,
It's not
and a lot of the
prosecuting.
major cities in Louisiana, they're not prosecuting for simple possession. So that's a step in the right direction. Remember, we're talking about 20 years
That's
ago.
true.
15 years
True.
ago, they were putting you in jail. So now you have, the tide is turning. People are realizing that simple possession of marijuana should not be a crime. Distribution might be a different thing, but
Right.
simple possession, that shouldn't be. You shouldn't be in jail for that, yes, ma'am.
So here's the trick, is now that you know that you have a new district attorney who is not putting people in jail because of these new laws, the question is to ask, so what happens to all those people who are now in jail for simple possession when they're serving for a joint for 35
The reason why I
years?
say it is because if you get picked up, if a police officer picks you up on drug charges, then he wind up goes to jail for selling drugs. By law, they supposed to let.
You said they picked you up with drugs.
You mean the police?
If a police get caught selling drugs,
Oh, okay.
if he
Oh,
gets
selling drugs.
Selling,
he gets
gotcha.
caught
Just
selling
distribution, okay.
Dis-
distribution of drugs. By law, they supposed to let the people who are been charged with these crimes by that officer.
Not distribution.
Not on distribution.
Not distribution. Not the ones selling, the ones buying.
Okay.
Now that's a sticky slope on the distribution side, simply because you're selling something with no controls of.
All right. What a possession charge? Yes. Yeah,
Possession charge, they
possession
should,
let,
you know.
Yeah.
But if you're selling something that's If you're the seller,
Mhm.
that's a whole different ballgame.
Right.
It
Simply
is.
because you don't know what you're selling.
Right.
I mean, you don't know